There's a certain stillness that comes after midnight that most people try to escape. The phone gets picked up. The TV stays on. The scroll begins, not because there's anything to find, but because silence feels like something that needs to be filled. Like the dark itself is asking a question you're not sure how to answer. And if you've ever noticed that feeling, that strange unease when the world goes quiet, you're not anxious. You're not broken. You're actually responding to something ancient. Something that was wired into your nervous system long before you were born. Most people assume that discomfort with darkness or quiet nights is a modern problem. A product of screens, overstimulation, or stress. Society tends to frame it as restlessness, maybe even a productivity failure. You should be sleeping. You should be resting. What's wrong with you? But that framing misses almost everything important about why nighttime feels the way it does for so many people. Because the night has never been simple for our species. Not for a very long time. What ancient humans actually did after the sun went down is one of the most quietly fascinating questions in behavioral science. And the answer rewrites a lot of what we think we know about sleep, connection, and what it means to be human after dark. For most of human evolutionary history, fire was the center of the night. Not just warmth. Not just protection. Fire was the first communal space. Researchers studying contemporary hunter-gatherer societies, groups whose lives most closely resemble those of our ancestors, found something striking about their nighttime behavior. During the day, most conversations were practical, task-oriented. Who goes where, what gets done, how things are organized. But at night, around fire, the content of conversation shifted almost completely. Stories emerged. Myths. Questions about the spiritual world, the invisible forces behind life and death, the nature of dreams. Laughter happened more. Songs. Imitation of people and animals. What we would now call performance. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner published research in 2014 documenting this phenomenon among the Duo-Hone Bushmen of southern Africa, and what she found was that firelight conversations weren't just pleasant, they were cognitively and socially foundational. These nighttime exchanges were where cultural knowledge transferred between generations, where social bonds deepened in ways that couldn't happen under the practical pressure of daylight, where the imagination was given space to work. Night, for our ancestors, was not downtime. It was a different kind of time, and the human brain was shaped by it. There is neurological evidence to support what this feels like. When light fades, the brain doesn't simply switch from active to passive. The default mode network, the system associated with introspection, narrative thinking, and emotional processing, becomes more dominant in low-stimulation environments. This is the same network that activates during daydreaming, during memory consolidation, during the processing of unresolved emotional experiences. The brain, in the dark, turns inward. It begins to make meaning. This is why so many people find that their most honest thoughts arrive at night. The worries feel louder, but so does the clarity. So does the creativity. It's not insomnia producing the thoughts. The thoughts were always there. The night just removes what was covering them. And this connects to something deeper than neuroscience. The quality of a person's night experience is often shaped by what they learned to do with stillness early in life. For children who grew up in environments where quiet meant safety, where darkness was associated with rest and warmth and presence, the night tends to feel neutral or even restorative. But for children who grew up in environments where unpredictability lived after dark, where silence meant tension, or where solitude felt exposed, the nervous system learned to treat nighttime as a state requiring vigilance. Not as a flaw, as an adaptation. The brain was doing exactly what it was trained to do, staying alert in conditions it had learned to associate with risk. That pattern doesn't simply disappear in adulthood. It becomes the texture of how night feels, and why some people can fall asleep easily while others find the same silence almost unbearable. Neither response is more evolved than the other. They are both, at their core, survival strategies that made sense once. Here is the quiet paradox in all of this. Ancient humans were actually not sleeping in one solid block through the night. Historian Roger Ekuch, after decades of research through historical documents, diaries, and medical texts, found overwhelming evidence that pre-industrial humans slept in two distinct periods, a first sleep and a second sleep, with an hour or two of calm wakefulness in between. People would wake around midnight, lie in the dark, talk with partners, reflect, sometimes pray, sometimes simply exist in a quiet state that was considered entirely natural. The pressure to sleep in one unbroken 8-hour period is, in historical terms, extremely recent. It came with artificial light. with industrialization, with schedules, which means that waking at 2 a.m. and feeling alert and strangely contemplative is not a disorder. It may be the oldest human rhythm there is. There is something worth sitting within that. The night was never meant to be conquered or optimized. It was meant to be inhabited. Ancient humans understood, perhaps without the language for it, that darkness had its own function, not the absence of the day, but a different relationship with time, with each other, with the interior life that gets crowded out by daylight and obligation. If you find yourself uncomfortable in silence, that discomfort carries real information. If you find yourself most alive after midnight, that too is data. Neither experience is random. Both are the nervous system communicating something that has roots far older than the life you're currently living. You are not out of sync with the world. You may simply be carrying a rhythm the modern world stopped making space for. There's another layer to this, about what the night reveals about how people relate to themselves when no one is watching. That one tends to surprise people.